And in unison, they'd all look at Augie. And then they'd look at me, and they'd look at Augie. And finally, Augie says, well, Major, are we going to do this or aren't we? And that's the first time I realized that I'd gotten sucked into a corporate decision briefing for which I had no authority to proceed. I mean, my bosses didn't even know I was out there, probably. and I took a big deep breath and said, we're going to do it. It's a go. And all of these guys, they jump up and they start slapping each other on the back and shaking hands and hooting and hollering. And I'm saying to myself, Self, get out of here now. And so it was a long weekend before I had a chance to brief General Vandenberg and General Donnelly on what I'd done. And they kind of patted me on the head and they said, it's okay, boy. You done okay. You done okay.
Good. Well, let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
You're a lieutenant colonel now. Constant PEG is in full effect. You've gotten your MiGs. There's a situation that happens early into your command. You've got a gentleman from the Navy. Yeah. It's flying for you. You're out in a two-ship, I believe. Yeah. And tell us about that.
Well, a little background on that. Early on in the development of our concept of operations, we'd had such wonderful luck with the Navy with the have drill, have donut programs that I invited the Navy to participate in the constant PEG program. And so I said, do you guys really want to do this? And the Navy says, yes, we want to do it. We want to do it. And then they kind of stood up and looked at their toes, and I said, I know, you don't have any money, right? They said, yeah, that's right, we don't have any money. I said, okay, you can play, but you don't get to make any decisions. And they said, okay, we'll do it. Turned out to be the smartest thing we did, because they sent us 3 officers that we always had there, Navy or Marine Corps or combinations. And so we had a Navy ops and we had an Air Force ops. And if the Air Force wasn't able to show up for a given contract time of exposure to go fly and fight against the MiGs, then my Navy guys could have Navy airplanes from Miramar, El Centro, or other places overhead almost instantly. So that was really, really a good deal. And because of their experience, excuse me, with half drill and half donut, let's get rid of this. Because of their experience with that, we trusted them, and they sent us people that were fully trained, fully qualified in the airplanes. And so we didn't have a training program for checking out the Navy guys. And one of the Navy pilots, the third one that came, his name was Hugh Brown. He was an F-14 pilot from VX-4 at Point Magoo. And he was very good. And we had a little bit of problem with the MiG-17. It was a fun little airplane to fly, but it could bite you. If you held it into a snap roll, it would depart and spin. And we wanted to send our guys down to Miramar and do some Buckeye training and spin training. And the leadership there at Nellis turned us down on it. They said that's another 4477th, which was our squadron boondoggle. And I'll come to a key point about that later, as we're almost done, I guess. But so Hugh and I took off, and I went and fought my F-5, and he went and fought his F-5, and as we're about to bingo out and change F-5s as adversaries, I hear this knock it off, and Hugh has hit the ground in his airplane, got in a spin, and recovered from the spin, I'm told, although I haven't seen the accident report. Got into a secondary spin with an over-aggressive attempt to recover from probably a low bottom, and he went in with the airplane, was killed. And so out of all of that, I got fired. And that was a pretty tough blow, okay? And the point I wanted to come back to, and as I see, we're probably close to out of time. Are we, Luke?
About 5 minutes, sir. We can keep going.
Okay. It was a real bitter pill to experience getting relieved after you put yourself into such a kind of a precarious position, I guess, by taking on a project like this. It was a disappointing thing, but as I would tell you, quite frankly, I came to understand it later. Well, even almost immediately I understood it. The Air Force was under a lot of pressure because of accidents at Red Flag, and the 2-star at Nellis was under a tremendous amount of pressure, and he just felt like he needed to make a change. And so that's what they did. And I learned an important lesson through that, and that was I found out that I wasn't killed, I was just injured through that process. And General Donnelly later rescued me, and I went on and had another secondary command, and went to National War College and made colonel and was a wing commander and flew F-15s later. And so, you know, what could I be mad about? You know, but it was a hard thing to take at the time. Unfortunate, but that's the way it happened. But let me point out that this program had so much momentum at that point that it was not stoppable. And over the next almost 10 years, our people that followed flew over 15,000 MiG sorties and trained almost 6,000 American airmen, that's Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force, on how to air fight against MiG-17, MiG-21, and then later we got the MiG-23s as well. And so it was a tremendously rewarding program. And the kill ratio, according to the Air Force magazine, some August a couple years ago, was 1.85 to 1 in Vietnam. It means we lost one for every 1.85 of theirs that we took down. That was way, way off the previous success rates of the Korean War and so on. And we put together over the time at the weapons school and through programs like Red Flag and Constant Peg and the weapons instructor course and even the basic FTUs, you call them now, we call them RTUs at the time, where we took air-to-air training and we distilled it down into building blocks, and every pilot that was involved had to progress, master the building block before they went to the next building block, to the next building block, to the next building block. When they came out at the end, they were fully qualified and ready for combat using current tactics and current thinking, and that was good. And those kinds of results, while our Israeli friends have most of these kills, we scored over 170 kills with no losses with F-15s and F-16s. And the U.S. tally was 39-0 during Desert Storm. So we think of that as kind of a return on investment for the overall evolution, not just Constant Peg, but the overall renaissance in air-to-air fighter training that did take part right after the Vietnam War.
Well, sir, our time has been brief. I know we could probably sit and listen for a lot more. Any parting shots for these potential future commanders?
Sure. One of the mantras that I've had in my life is to realize that life is full of ups and downs, hills and valleys. Think of it as a sine curve or whatever. And so when things are really going good, you're up on a hill, and things go really bad, you're down in the valley. And as I taught my children, and they still advocate this to their children today, when you're really down in the dumps and things aren't going good, the key is hard work. Get yourself back out of that dump, work yourself back up onto that hill, turn that hill into a plateau. And when you're down in that low area and you think everything is bad, that's not the time to make big decisions. You need to work your way out of it, and then once you're back on the plateau, if you want to make big decisions, fine, that's cool. So just take that as an idea. And the other idea I would give you is that you've had a tremendous impact, a tremendous emphasis on leadership in this course. Leadership is so vitally important. But almost equally, and maybe in some cases more important, is fellowship. You have to learn to be followers as well, because you're always going to have a boss, no matter who you are or how high you go in the hierarchy. I mean, my squadron mate, Dick Myers, from the weapons school at Nellis, became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He still had a boss, you know? And so you have to learn to be good followers too. And then you have to learn to be that corridor, that transit between the follower who takes the guidance and the leader who then implements the guidance and implements it accurately in accordance with their fellowship. So take fellowship seriously and gain the confidence of your bosses wherever you go and whatever you do. Then they will trust you, and it will make your leadership more effective and more important, I think, to the people that trust you that are subordinate to you. So
Hear, hear.
that'd be
Thank
my
you.
thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Colonel Peck.
Yeah.